When she left me for my closest friend, I didn't shout. I didn't break things. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask why. I just stood there, still, quiet, breathing through the kind of pain that burns too deep for words. People say heartbreak makes you lose yourself. But that night, I didn't lose myself. I found the part of me that finally stopped chasing love that didn't want to stay. I remember the way she looked at me before she walked out. There was guilt in her eyes, but also relief, the kind that comes when someone chooses excitement over loyalty. And my so-called friend, standing beside her, couldn't even meet my eyes. That told me everything I needed to know. I didn't sleep that night, not because of anger, but because silence had become too loud. I sat by the window of my apartment, looking down at the city lights, wondering how love can vanish between two people who once promised forever. But here's what I learned in the months that followed. You don't destroy people who betray you. You outgrow them, and the quietest kind of revenge is peace. Peace that shines so bright, it makes them regret ever walking away. That's what I did. This is how I turned my heartbreak into calm revenge, the kind that left her speechless, not because I hurt her, but because I stopped needing her at all. I wasn't born into this life of city lights and silent penthouses. Everything I had, the view, the car, the tailored suits, came from years of grinding. I built a business from a single desk and a borrowed laptop. I used to think that success would buy peace, but what I didn't realize was success can buy you comfort, not connection. When I met Herry, I thought she was different. She wasn't impressed by money or luxury. She used to say she liked how calm I was, how I could listen without interrupting. We met at a friend's dinner. Nothing romantic at first. She laughed easily, talked about her art, her dream of opening her own design studio one day. I remember thinking, this woman still believes in soft things, in feelings, in meaning. That night, after everyone left, she said, "You don't talk much, Karan, but when you do, it sounds like you mean every word." I smiled. I only speak when silence starts to hurt. She laughed, and that was the beginning. We started seeing each other more. Quiet dinners, long drives, late-night conversations about everything and nothing. For the first time in years, I felt human again. Not a businessman, not a provider, just a man who wanted to love and be loved. That's when Joul entered the picture. He was my closest friend, the kind who'd been there since the days when I had nothing. We'd built part of our early ventures together. Joul was charming, loud, full of life, the opposite of me. But we worked well as a team because I trusted him, maybe too much. Herry and Joul met through me. I remember introducing them at a small rooftop get-together. She smiled politely, and he, as usual, joked his way into every conversation. He had that energy, the kind that drew people in. I didn't think much of it then. As months passed, Herry moved into my apartment. It was a quiet life. Work for me, creativity for her. She'd paint in the mornings, cook small dinners, leave little notes on my desk that said things like, "Don't forget to eat, or you're doing great." Those notes stopped after a while. I can't say when exactly love doesn't fade overnight. It disappears in pieces, in forgotten words. In moments where you both choose silence instead of honesty, I started coming home late. She said she understood, that she knew how demanding business could be. But I noticed her eyes no longer lit up when I entered the room. She began spending more time outside, meeting clients, helping friends, attending art shows. I wanted to ask, which friends? But I didn't. I told myself love needs trust, and I had promised her mine. Then came the day Joul stopped by, unannounced. Herry greeted him warmly. Too warmly, maybe, but again, I brushed it off. The three of us sat together, and I noticed how icily they laughed, how she looked at him when she spoke, how he looked back, not in guilt, but familiarity. After he left, I asked her casually, "You seem to get along with Joul." She smiled faintly. "He's funny. You're lucky to have a friend like him." I said nothing, but something inside me shifted. I told myself I was overthinking, that my mind was playing tricks born of insecurity. But deep down, I knew what unspoken truths looked like. I've seen them in business meetings, in handshakes that hide agendas. I just never thought I'd see them at my own dining table. Still, I didn't confront her. I was raised to believe that when love starts to fall apart, shouting doesn't save it, silence reveals it. Days turned into weeks. Herry grew distant. Joul grew more present. He'd drop by for casual visits. stay longer than needed, help her with errands that weren't his to handle. I told myself he was just being kind. But kindness doesn't look like stolen glances. Then one evening, after a long day at work, I came home early. Herry was on a video call. When she saw me, she quickly shut her laptop. "Who is that?" I asked gently. "Just a client," she said. "Too fast." I nodded. "Okay?" That night, while she slept, I walked out to the balcony. The city looked beautiful, all glass and light, like 1,000 fragile promises glowing in the dark. I stood there, realizing something simple but heavy. Sometimes, love doesn't die because of betrayal. It dies because one person stops feeling safe enough to stay honest. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to hate her, because even then, even while doubt was eating me alive, a part of me still wanted her to choose me. But the heart always knows before the mind admits it, and mine was already mourning something she hadn't confessed yet. After that night on the balcony, something in me changed. Not because I stopped loving Herry, but because I stopped believing that love alone could hold us together. I began watching her differently, not out of suspicion, but from distance, like a man who knows he's losing something, but doesn't know how to save it. She used to hum while cooking. Now, silence filled the kitchen. She used to wait for me to come home. Now, she barely looked up when I did. Still, I told myself it was a phase. Every relationship has quiet seasons. I believed if I stayed patient, she would come back emotionally, if not physically. Then one morning I noticed her perfume. It wasn't the one I'd bought her last month, the one she once said made her feel like home. This one was lighter, floral, almost youthful, like she was trying to be someone else again. "New perfume?" I asked casually over breakfast. She smiled faintly, not meeting my eyes. "Yeah, just wanted to change." I nodded, pretending to agree. But my mind whispered what my heart didn't want to hear. She's changing for someone else. Later that week, Joul called. "Bro, you've been off lately," he said with that easy tone of his. "Let's grab a drink. You, me, and Herry, maybe." I hesitated. Something about the way he said her name made me uncomfortable. "She's been busy," I replied. He laughed softly. "I know, we've talked." She told me she's been under a lot of pressure lately. My hand froze midair. "She's been talking to him." I forced a chuckle. "That's good. She's got someone to talk to." He didn't catch the edge in my voice. Or maybe he did and didn't care. That night, Herry came home late. I didn't ask where she was. I'd learned that when someone's already halfway out the door, emotionally, questions only push them faster. She looked at me like she wanted to say something but didn't. Instead, she just walked past and said softly, "You're still awake." "I couldn't sleep," I said. "Try to," she whispered. Then went to the bedroom. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the prelude to goodbye. That's what we lived in for the next few weeks. One Friday evening, while organizing my work bag, I noticed Harry's phone buzzing on the table. I didn't want to look. I hate snooping. But something made me glance at the screen. A message flashed from Joul. "Tomorrow's still on. I'll bring wine." My stomach tightened. I put the phone back exactly where it was. When she came out of the shower, I smiled like nothing had happened. "You going somewhere tomorrow?" She hesitated. "Just meeting an old friend." "Joul?" I asked softly. Her eyes flickered, that half-second where truth trembles between guilt and defense. "He's been helping me with a project," she said quickly. "You're overthinking again." I didn't say anything, I replied calmly. "That's worse," she muttered under her breath and walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay there, listening to her breathing beside me, wondering how two people can be inches apart and still feel like strangers. The next day, she dressed up early, casual, but intentional. A light shirt, hair tied, perfume faint but noticeable. "Where are you headed?" I asked. "Just out for a bit." "Don't wait for me," she said without looking back. After she left, the apartment felt bigger and emptier. I walked into the kitchen, made coffee, and sat by the window watching the city below. I don't know how long I stayed there, but when I finally moved, the coffee had gone cold. In the afternoon, I decided to drive out, not to follow her, but because I couldn't stand being surrounded by her absence. The city roads blurred as I drove with no destination. But somehow, I ended up near the river, close to the art district, where Herry used to hang out before we got engaged. That's when I saw them, at a small cafe terrace, laughing, leaning in close. Joul's hand brushed hers as he showed her something on his phone. She laughed softly, that same laugh I once knew by heart. It didn't feel like betrayal at first. It felt like realization. A quiet acknowledgement that I'd already lost her. I was just late to the moment. I didn't go inside. I didn't shout. I watched for a while, then turned and walked away. That night, she came home smiling. "You're home early," she said. "I had nowhere else to be," I answered. She paused, sensing something beneath my words. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at her, really looked the woman I once wanted forever with. "It means," I said quietly, "I'm done pretending we're okay." Her face changed. "You're accusing me again?" "No, I'm accepting what's already true." She frowned. "You're being paranoid, Karan." "Maybe," I said, "but even paranoia needs a reason." She didn't reply. She just stood there, frozen between guilt and pride. Then she whispered, "Maybe we both need space." I nodded. "Take all the space you need," and she did. Days passed. She moved out temporarily, said she needed time to think. Joul didn't call me anymore. Our group chats went silent. That's how betrayal works. It doesn't announce itself. It just slowly removes everything familiar until you're left with quiet at first. I wanted to confront them both, demand explanations, but then I realized something. Closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from acceptance. So instead of chasing them, I turned inward. I threw myself into work, not to escape, but to rebuild. I stopped drinking coffee at the balcony where we used to sit. I started waking up early, running again, calling my parents more often. It hurt, yes. Every morning felt like starting over with a wound that hadn't healed yet. But pain has a strange way of teaching discipline. One evening, after a late meeting, I saw a message from Herry. It said, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because I had nothing left to say. A few days later, Joul showed up at my office unannounced. "Bro, can we talk?" he asked, avoiding my eyes. I leaned back in my chair. "You already did enough talking with her, didn't you?" he sighed. "It's not what you think. It never is," I said quietly. He fumbled with his hands. "She's confused, Karan. She doesn't know what she wants. And you?" I asked, "Do you?" He looked down. "I didn't mean for this to happen then. Why did you let it?" Silence. I waited for him to answer, but he didn't. He just muttered, "I'm sorry," and left. I sat there for a long time, staring at the door he'd just walked through, realizing that apology means nothing when loyalty's already gone. That night, I sat by my window again, the city glowing below, and for the first time since she left, I didn't feel angry or broken. I felt calm, a kind of calm that comes when you finally stop trying to fix what was never meant to last. Because sometimes, letting go isn't weakness. It's the highest form of self-respect. After that night, I stopped checking my phone. No late-night calls, no waiting for messages that would never come. I started treating my silence like a form of power, because sometimes peace itself is the loudest reply you can give to people who expect you to fall apart. At first it felt strange waking up alone. The apartment seemed too big, the bed too cold, the mornings too quiet. But over time, I realized that quiet isn't always empty. Sometimes it's healing. I began to rebuild my days. I'd wake up at dawn, go for long walks through the quiet city streets before anyone else was awake. The air was cool. The world felt new. I started noticing small things again. Sunlight hitting the glass buildings, the smell of coffee from the corner cafe, the sound of my own steady breathing. It was as if life was slowly reminding me, you still exist. Karan, not as someone's fiancée, not as half of a broken love story, but as a man on his own 2 feet. Work became my therapy. I stopped chasing deals for validation and started choosing projects that meant something. My company began to grow faster than ever. I wasn't distracted anymore. Heartbreak had stripped me down to focus. My colleagues noticed the change. "You seem calmer these days," one of them said. I smiled. Peace looks good on everyone. I didn't tell anyone what happened. In a city like ours, gossip moves faster than truth. But I wanted to protect my dignity, even from sympathy. I didn't need people to pity me. I needed to prove, quietly, that I could rise above it all. 2 months passed before I saw Herry again. I was attending a charity art gala, one of those events filled with polite smiles, wine glasses, and cameras pretending to capture sincerity. I almost didn't go, but one of my clients insisted. The hall was glowing, soft lights, warm music, and laughter echoing like perfume in the air. I was speaking to a group of investors when I felt it. That sudden shift in the air when the past walks back into your present. I turned, and there she was. Herry, looking as radiant as ever, maybe even more so. She was wearing a pale blue dress, hair flowing down softly, a calm smile on her lips. But her eyes, they carried a quiet restlessness, a searching kind of sadness that no amount of beauty could hide. And beside her was Joul, of course. He had that same easy confidence, but something in his expression seemed forced, like he was smiling for show. When our eyes met, Herry froze for half a second. Then she composed herself, whispered something to Joul, and they both walked toward me. "Karan," she said softly, as if my name still felt familiar on her tongue. "Herry," I replied, steady and calm. "You look well." Joul extended a hand. "Hey man, it's been a while." I shook it, firm and unbothered. "Yes, it has." The three of us stood there, a strange, silent triangle of what once was. She glanced at my suit, at the small crowd of people around me waiting to talk. "You've been doing well," she said quietly. I smiled faintly. "I've been peaceful." Her eyes softened at that word. "Peaceful," she repeated, almost under her breath. Then came that look, the one people give when they realize they no longer have access to the version of you they once took for granted. I excused myself politely, turned and walked away. No anger, no satisfaction, just calm. And in that moment, I understood what true revenge looks like. Not hurting them back, but letting them see you unbothered, untouchable, and free. After that evening, things started shifting even more. New contracts came in. I started traveling again, speaking at conferences, mentoring young entrepreneurs. Every success felt different now, cleaner, lighter. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was building peace. I even redecorated my apartment, not to erase her memory, but to make space for my own. I removed the art she left behind, changed the curtains, added soft plants by the window. For the first time, the house smelled like me. I began to take care of myself again, reading before bed, cooking my own meals, walking by the river on weekends. People often talk about moving on as if it's a single decision, but really, it's 1,000 small choices every day. Choosing not to look back, one evening, months later, I got a message from Herry again. This time, it was longer. She wrote, "I know I have no right to reach out, but I saw the interviews you've been doing lately. You've changed so much. I don't even recognize you anymore. You look happy, truly happy. I'm glad you're doing well. Though part of me wishes I could have seen this version of you before everything fell apart." I stared at that message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, not out of anger, but because I wanted to choose silence over noise. And so, I didn't reply. Sometimes, silence is an answer that echoes louder than words. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that things between her and Joul weren't going well. They'd started arguing money, trust, jealousy. I didn't smile at that news, because real peace doesn't celebrate someone else's pain. But deep down, I knew life has its way of teaching lessons we refused to learn early. Joul had betrayed loyalty for desire. Herry had traded stability for excitement, and I had lost them both, but found myself. That's not tragedy. That's transformation. One night, while driving home late after a meeting, I stopped at a red light near the art district. It was raining lightly. The world looked blurred through the windshield, like a memory fading away at that very corner. Across the street was the same cafe where I once saw Herry and Joul laughing months ago. The lights were dim now, the chairs empty, the window reflecting the drizzle. For a moment, I smiled, not bitterly, but peacefully, because that place no longer hurt. It was just another corner of the city, another page-turned dot. My calm revenge wasn't a plan. It wasn't revenge in the usual sense at all. It was the quiet decision to become someone who didn't need to prove his worth anymore. The man I was before Heartbreak needed validation. The man I became after needed peace. And peace, I learned, is the kind of revenge that doesn't end a story. It begins a new one. Asterisk.